Hello guys, Solohood here for what I hope to be a short update and probably the final one about this Blood Mage Spark setup I was working on. So in today's video I'll try to focus just on the things we change from the previous build, and in particular I will reference myself many times to the previous one so that I'll try to be short in that version. A very quick reminder about what the build work around. So in general we usually play maps just spamming our spark skill around the maps to clean white and blue mobs, and gathering energy at the same time for our cast on critical and cast on elemental ailments buff, permanent buffs, which will cast COMET, and in this new setup ball lightning and lightning warp. We'll see how that works. So we spam spark, we clean pack some mob, and the other automatic cast will take care of big mob for us. So, I just forgot, another important point for the build itself is the original sin ring, which convert all of our elemental damage to cost damage. Talking about the wand. This is the new one I managed to get from the from our weapon. We just want to get spell damage, chaos damage, plus level 2 all spell skill, critical spell damage bonus, cast speed, and I think the best options here are damage, gain a percentage of damage as extra elemental damage, or whatever kind of damage, we just don't care. Because if I get it right, this extra damage every time get converted to chaos damage, even if it's damage taken as extra. So basically this extra just become extra chaos damage. Also, the spell given by the weapon Spellslinger is not mandatory, but if you manage to get it, can be useful in the setup we will talk about later. Just a quick reminder about Spellslinger. It's a permanent buff which simply gather energy while you cast spell, and then, as you can see here, when it have enough energy, it just allow us to cast the spell which are linked to it, COMET in our case, as you can see here. Okay. The ring and the gloves are identical from the previous setup. The only difference is the rune allocated in the gloves, which I think in the previous setup was Withering Magnitude. I think cast speed can enhance the quality of life of the build, let's say, because of the speed you manage to get during maps. Withering Magnitude, it's more useful when it comes to boss encounter, but I try to focus more on survivability and quality of life of the build in this particular setup. The helmet it's the same of the previous setup. I think also the amulet is the same one. Also the focus change. Here again we want just spell damage, chaos damage, plus level of all spell skill, spell damage bonus, cast speed, very important, and as much energy shield as possible. Because in this new setup, we also rely on energy shield when it comes to our defensive layers. We'll see how exactly we take advantage of energy shield from a defensive point of view. That said, also the body armor changes, because here we want as much energy shield as possible, of course some resistances in order to cap all of them, and we can rely on this new setup on a smallest amount of spirit required. Indeed is 311, different from the previous one, which I was right, which if I'm right was 315. So, and again, as much energy shield as possible. Also boots and belt changes, but not in terms of main stats, which are still life and resistances. just the base of the boots changes because again we want as much energy shield as possible. All the rest of the gear is the same rather than this charm which just dropped, and I think could be useful because of the fact that we have a chance to gain a charge when we kill an enemy. But the main use of this charm just the freeze immunity. The other are just the stun immunity and the one for the rarity. Nothing special about the charm. So that was all for the items, and now we can talk about the changes to the gems. Life Remnants, say support gem. Spellslinger, the new skill we get from the wand. With this is not absolutely not necessary. Also, it's actually hard to get a wand with that stat with Olco, which also have grand skill Spellslinger as base. So don't be worried about that. It's that useful when it comes to boss fight because of the fact that you gather energy during map, and then for tough rare or bosses you have this sort of other spell you can cast on them. Nothing particular about that. Sigil of Power, same support gem as the Sprayo setup. I think also Spark have the, yeah, this should be exactly the same support gem. Now, for the custom critical and custom elemental ailments, the idea is all the same support gem as before for the custom elemental ailments, and in particular take advantage of the big amount of energy we are able to gather for that kind of buff, since we taking advantage of tool stillness, which let our chaos damage contribute to freeze build up. It's able to gather a lot of energy for custom ailments, which as you can see gains 10 energy per power of enemy we freeze with it. So a lot of energy for custom elemental ailments, and therefore a lot of comets, even more with spell cascade. The difference right now is for the setup of custom critical, which is different from the previous one, which here we don't use the comet like in the previous one. We substitute the gems with ball lighting and lightning warp, which I think it's very cool to see during map, and probably many times we don't even need the ball lighting, but in order to, oh sorry, I would just forget how ball lighting and lightning warp work on their own. So let me check if I can quickly show you how they work. Yeah, we can just remove that buff. Okay, sorry. Okay, Lightning Warp is simply a skill which let us teleport inside an enemy which can be cooled. With enemy can be cooled under a specific percentage of their life and be instantly killed. Also, Lightning Warp can be cast on ball lighting, even if there is no enemy which could be cooled by us. So that's the reason why we get this kind of gem both set it up in that permanent buff. The idea they work is just like that. We have the lightning warp, and then we have the ball lightning, and then we can be able to instantly cast the lightning warp whenever the ball is, or way more probable where the enemy which can be cooled is. Okay, now we can keep talking about gems. All right. That's enough for the custom critical setup. Withering Presence, same setup as before, so we can lower chaos resistance of enemies even more. Siphon Elements, this is new, and in particular now we can allocate this kind of permanent buff, which allow us to gather at the same time cold, fire and lightning remnants, which enhance our skill. Right now the skill which can benefit from the fire infusion is the COMET. These are the fire infused damage for the COMET, and in particular maybe I can I can actually show you how. These are the support gem for our Siphon Elements, and in particular we are able to gather a lot of different infusion thanks to the node allocate here in the passive tree, Elemental Equilibrium, another different from the previous setup. Infusion remnants we create are always a random element, and this is something we can already see simply by casting 2 Orb of Storm, which by default leave a lightning remnants, but thanks to the node leave a different kind of remnants, as you can see here. In particular, gather this, the Fire Infusion remnants, already let us appreciate how the different comets can benefit from this Fire Infusion. This was a Fire Infused comet. The other elemental remnants we can benefit from is the cold infused one, is the cold one, and in particular, sorry, this was unlucky, and in particular the gem which benefit from it is Spark, which is very useful because of, oh, that's the remnant we were looking for, cold infusion, because the spark are fired in a circle around us, so even behind us. Very useful during mapping. That was for Siphon Elements and how we can get advantage from the different remnant infusion. Then we have charge regulate, more useful. Then we have combat frenzy. Then we have combat frenzy. So each time we freeze an enemy, we get a frenzy charge, and this work very close with resonance. Every time we gain a frenzy charge instead, we gain power charges instead of frenzy charges. And with charge regulation we get advantage of those power charges, converting them into critical hit chance. Actually, thanks to charge profusion and the fact that we have a 50% chance to grant an additional random charge, very often we get advantage also for the skill speed thanks to the frenzy charge we managed to get. Then we have Orb of Storm, just used for bosses, and same setup, same super gem of the previous setup. Now, in order to allocate all of these different permanent buffs, our Despair curse is no more linked to Blasphemy, and we have to manually cast it. Same support gem of, I think same, maybe efficiency is the new one, of the previous setup, with cursed ground, so the curse is permanent. Alright, that was enough for the gem. Let's quickly talk about the passive tree and its changes. Actually the tree changes a lot, because the path we had before, I think it was very unoptimized, in particular this path here, which spent a lot of points into attribute which we actually don't need. So, as I told you, we also rely on energy shield for defenses now. So, we want to gather as much energy shield as possible. Now, this green line that you can see here is related to weapon set 2, and in particular, for weapon set 2 we want to skate the effect of curses and the area of effect in general. Here we change the position of the timeless jewel Undying 8. Remember, we just want the tribute of Tegrod, we don't really care about the number which is shown here, the soul in tribute. Just be sure you get Tegrod when it comes to the Conqueror. Here, because we want to allocate Sacrifice of Blood. Now, I was very unlucky for the number of souls sacrificed to Tegrod, but probably if you manage to get a good timeless jewel. Also here, as you can see, there are a lot of nodes you can take advantage of. Unfortunately, none of this is useful for my setup. Then we go up here, we get Elemental Equilibrium, so we get the random Elemental Remnants. And now we are right here. Wait, let me check if there's something, some more important node. We come back here in a second. Patient barrier for the maximum energy shield. Again, we want as much energy shield as possible. Points allocated for weapon 1, cast damage, and for weapon 2, so it's called curse duration and the curse magnitude. Critical hit chance, critical strike, nothing too fancy to talk about. Alright, we can talk about the Zealot off. This node let us, well, first of all, doesn't allow our energy shield to recharge, but we don't care because the excess life recovery from regeneration is applied to energy shield. If you remember, our timeless jewel allow us to reach very high life recovery per second values, the most life we spend on our skill. So that's the way we manage to sustain our energy shield during maps. The life regeneration which overrun our life pool directly goes to energy shield regeneration. That plus the fact that our at-zero acuity allow us to leech instantly from critical strike, that basically turn into an insane energy shield regeneration potential. In order to make this regeneration setup work, we need to allocate fast metabolism on our amulet, so that life leech effect, and in particular our instant life leech effect, are not removed when our life is filled. So that regeneration is directly applied to an energy shield whenever we already are full life. Alright, I think I hope to have explained that the right way, but let me know if you have some question about that. Basically, our regeneration just go to an energy shield. And I think that's it for the passive tree, because the ascendancy node are just the same of the previous setup. Oh, right, I would just forget the important thing about the jewel. That jewel changed a little bit, because we need to be sure to get maximum energy shield at least on some of them, rather than simply spell damage, cause damage, and critical damage bonus, because we want to scale now also the amount of our energy shield in order to solely rely on it as defensive layer. Alright, I think that's it for the main mechanic. Oh, right, I have to make a little point about lighting war and ball lighting. Probably this is not the setup which delivers the highest amount of damage. You will see that during maps, so I can show you how it works, but probably simply put COMET and consider casting on them will have higher damage. I simply like the way this works, and I don't think we lose too much. So having a skill which work in a smooth way, and in particular it's fun to play for me, is mandatory in order to like have the will to play the game. I think that's it for the build itself. Remember, a lot of important points are discussed in the previous video. In general, just remember to allocate for the spark the use with weapon set 1, so it can be used by our wand, and for despair our set 2, so you can get advantage from, as you can see, the big Ivor effect, the curse magnitude, that's it, curse magnitude and area of effect, and also for Sigil of Power, which automatically is casted by the staff. If you have any kind of question, please ask in comments. I can surely answer to them, even if most of them probably get the answer in the previous video, which I'll link in the description. Now let's see if we can get some cool content so I can show you how the build works. I think I found something. This is not too much, let's say, but since we have our boss Atlas 3 maxed, I think it can be cool to like testing the build in a scenario of that kind, with a tier 17 maps with bosses and an irradiated modifier. I think this can be useful to get the power of the build, also in terms of defenses. Usually before start mapping, it's useful to start stacking regeneration, so in other words, to spamming Spark before reaching enemies. Now I'm going not too fast, right, that's it, that's why. Because with the setup of ball lighting and lightning warp, it's very easy to get teleported almost everywhere. Okay, as you can see, it's not very sorry, it's not very easy to, it's almost feel like a sort of flicker strike setup, because many times you start getting teleported everywhere around the map, but I think it's fun, so I just keep playing like that. If you don't want to play in that kind of scenario, simply you just have to swap the ball lightning warp setup with COMET and its support jump. That was the fire infused COMET. I think the defenses of the build get highly enhanced thanks to the fact that now we can also count off the energy shield. Remember to keep spamming Spark so we hold our regeneration high. Okay, it was good. I just put on the ground our courses, but I didn't even use Orb of Storm, Sigil of Power, and the Spellslinger for the final COMET. So I think that's not too bad for a tier 16 and bosses map. Alright, let me check if you have something else we can test the build on. See, we need to stack a little bit of regeneration before start mapping, but that's fine. At that point you can just start walking and keep spamming. Now for this one I will probably put all the things we need in order. So Curse on the ground, Sigil of Power, 2 Orb of Storm, and alright. Guys, as always, thanks a lot for watching. Sorry if the video felt a bit different. I know I made more pauses than usual and the structure was not tight. This was actually the first one I recorded without following a canopy outline, so it's a bit more raw. Hopefully it will get better step by step. Feel free to drop any question or suggestion for improvement in comments, I'd really appreciate it, and of course don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support means a lot. Stay tuned for the next one and I wish you all a great day.